Hello, welcome once again to the J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me on this artistic journey. And today we'll be working with colored pencils. So you'll need your number 2 or HB pencil, kneaded eraser, and some good quality colored pencils. All right, we'll be working with color today. You should have your colored pencils. This click style eraser, it's a vinyl eraser, is nice to have, but not totally necessary. I think most of the time we can cover things up. But there are things that you can do with it, so it's nice to have. First thing we're going to do is simple shapes. So start out with his body. You say, well, I want his back edge to be kind of clear over here, and the front edge not quite in the middle, maybe off to the left just a little bit, about right in here. So that's about the size that we want. His head's going to be up in here. So remember to draw with the side of your pencil. So his head's about right there, attached onto his body, which kind of comes down here. Got his legs, they're just little long sausage-like shapes. So remember, just simple shapes, simple shapes. Don't start details, don't start things like that. Just figure out where it goes first. And it's not a big deal if it's not exact. In fact, all we're doing is getting a reference. Got to have that point of reference or else don't know where things go. Now, the head is the most important thing, and so once you get kind of establish the size you want, remember to make it fairly large. You want to cover the entire page. A good composition touches or comes close to touching 3 of the 4 sides. His ears are kind of triangle shaped, so if I throw in a triangle over there and a triangle over here. If you look at his back, his mouth, the end of his jaw is almost level with his back. And so you could come down and go, well, this is where his mouth is going to go. And so right up level with that, the end of his chest kind of comes up into his nose right there. And so you could say, well, somewhere in here is his nose. And you can just delineate that out. If it's not the right size, you can change it. That's why we use the side of our pencil, is it's easily changed. It's somewhere just above his nose, almost between his nose and the top of his head are his eyes, and you could like just say, well, there's got to be one over here, and there's got to be one over here. And if it's not in the right place, you'll know it. You'll look at it and go, no, it needs to go higher or lower, or to the left or to the right. That point of reference is really important to get in right from the start. Once you get that point of reference in, then you can start adjusting things, making them bigger, smaller, moving them, whatever you need to do. Everything that we're drawing here gets erased because we don't want that graphite on there when we start using color. Actually, we're going to do one color first and then get rid of the graphite. So proportioning says you line up things, just like we did the chin and the back should kind of line up. You look at the nose as it lines up with the side, you know. This leg lines up with the edge of his ear. Little things like that. You just try to notice all those things. And the faster you notice them, the better you're going to be. So when you're thinking about colors, he is black and white, but the black, we don't necessarily want to use black. We do want it there because it's contrast, but what color would you use instead of black? Look at the colors in his shadows and things up in there. What color would you use? Good, that's a good one. Purple or even blue. It depends, but here I see more purple. So what I'm going to do with my purple is I'm going to go through and I'm just going to start sketching as if this purple were my number 2 pencil. So I'm just going to start with this little spot on his ear up here. You can start with his face, you can start with his eyes, you can, start wherever you want to start. But I'm just going to do the dark areas. And again, this is almost like ink in that you just kind of pick out the dark areas and just do those. Leave your edges. Don't worry about edges. Don't draw edges in. Here's that little shadow that goes down his head there to his eye. If this isn't quite right, I can change it. I can move it. Here's his eye. Now, I don't know if there's a shine in his eye, but I would imagine there is. So I'm just going to leave it out. I can always tone it down a little bit later. But for now, I just know there's got to be a shine there. Any eye that is alive is going to have a shine in it. Here's his nose. And again, there's a little shine on his nose, so I'm just going to leave that shine out. And try to get as close as you can the shape of it. But remember, nothing is perfect right from the start. We'll change it, we'll alter it, we'll make it better. But don't beat yourself up because it's not perfect. Here's his little mouth. Here's his other eye. And again, I think there's a shine in there, so I'm going to leave it out. A little dark on that other ear. But if there's an edge that is white, just leave it out. Your viewer will get that edge. They'll draw it in their mind. I don't want to draw in like this little edge across his head. If I were to erase my graphite, I've put in just a few little spots there to say this is where it ends, this is where his ears kind of go. But overall, I don't think I need any more than that. Anywhere there's a shadow, go ahead and just put in a little bit of color. And that's what we want to do. We want to get rid of our graphite. I'm using his spots also to help me to get his structure. I'm going to continue that all the way through until I've got that form of the dog. And nobody cares if the spots are exactly in the right place, but try to be as close as you can. That'll help you get your form. His collar, you can just throw that in. You could just almost do stripes there. because there's some light in there. Don't worry about the buckles, don't worry about all the details, just trying to get the structure. Again, I'm using the spots to get the structure. Not worried about whether this is a dog or a beaver, doesn't matter. Just try to get it as close as you can. Use the side of your pencil to get that shading in there. It's going to be a lot faster. And I'm not worried about the structure of the leg right now. I'm just going to put in the shapes of those shadows that I see. So there's kind of this little triangular shape, and then you drop it down into this little cylinder. I can always add more later. So once you got most of your structure in, get rid of your graphite. And you'll be left with this kind of ghosty image. Gotta get rid of that graphite so that when you start coloring, it's not going to mix with that graphite and turn your colors muddy. So I have the basic structure. It's not perfect, but that's okay, because as I draw, I'm going to layer in colors, going to layer things in that are going to help me. And I can always adjust. Drawing's kind of like a camera. You start out very simple, like our simple shapes, our little sausage and our little circles and things. And then you just refine. And the more you work on it, the better it'll look. Until you get to that point where you go, I'm done. But just think of it like ink. Remember, there's spots that you just want to leave out. That makes interest. That's interesting. The part of his back, across his head, there's places you just leave it out. Just don't need it in there anymore. Let your viewer imagine that in there. Now we want to pick out other colors. We've got purple. I like this sky blue. I see a lot of that sky blue in there. I'd probably use some of that. Definitely want to use black. So you're going to have black in there. And there's this kind of aqua, a kind of a blue-green. You see a lot of green around. Maybe we're going to do a little green in the grass. But there is reflected light that bounces up into his chest, onto his legs, that are kind of this aqua color. So maybe we'll use that. And you probably think to yourself, gosh, Mr. Lowe, I don't see all those colors. That's okay. You got to kind of train your eye to see them. And after a while you will. And I guarantee you, you'll start looking around your world, seeing more colors than you've been used to looking at. So I'm going to add a little bit of this magenta in there, this little bit of red. You see it a lot in the collar, but I also see it around his eyes, around his nose. So that magenta color is going to be good. So for the most part, we have cool colors. That little magenta, which is red-violet, is our medium color. And then we need something just a little warmer, just to warm up some of those lights. I don't want to use that lemony yellow, but this golden yellow, maybe a little bit of that here and there. So whatever colors you layer on top are going to be your dominant colors, whatever goes on top. But you need the black as an undertone for the contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and do the black, and then when we're done with the black, we can put it away. Because we'll layer other colors into it. So again, I'm just going to come in, and any place that I see is really super dark, I'm going to go ahead and use that black. So it's going to start with the eye. The eye is fairly dark. I'm going to use that around the eye. And I'm going to still leave out that little shiny area. I know there's a shine in there. I can barely see it. Any place in the spots, go ahead and put those, but not all of it, because like these spots on the back over here, that's not black. That would be purples and blues. And so you only want to do black in the darkest areas. So a little bit on his nose here. But this highlight part, this light part, is going to be all purple. Just the darkest areas. If you think to yourself, well, it's dark, but it's not that dark, you can do it with just violet or blue, but they don't, so we just use purples, the darker blue, whatever we can do. I can see a little bit of a shine in that eye too. I'm just going to leave that out because I know I can come back into it. When in doubt, leave it out. You can always come back in later. And since I've already got my spots, though some of them are not in the right place, so now I can adjust them. If they're not quite right, I can adjust them. And that little bit of purple that's left behind, nobody's going to care about that. So that little bit of black is going to give us the contrast that we need. At this point, I might kind of delineate the buckles. Just say, okay, there's a buckle right there. I don't have to draw it all in there, but I do need to just kind of say, there's a little buckle there, a little piece of light, you can see that. Oh, sometimes we, like his spots, the urge is to draw a line around it and then shade it in. Instead, do it opposite. Just shade it in and then worry about the edge if you need it. But you may not even need the edge. So I'm not actually going with exactly where my purple spots were. I change them a little bit, and when I have, you don't even notice that I've changed them. Besides that, he's furry, and so you want your edges to be broken anyway. You don't want them to be too smooth. So I think that's about it for my black. I've got my contrast, I've got my spots. Everything else I'm going to do with the blues, the purples, the magenta, and a little tiny bit of yellow. So I think I'm going to grab that sky blue. I do a lot of the shadows with that sky blue. Over the top of the purple. Go into his eye, take that shine out. I mean, it's there, but it's taking it out a little bit. So now that sky blue mixed with the purple, and then I'm going to do some more purple with it because I like that purple. Anytime you have white in shadow, it's going to look blue. It's going to be very cool in color. Not always, but usually. So I'm going to go over the black, over the purple. And I'm not worried about edges. They'll come. This is just the blue, that sky blue. The more color you use, the better. So as you're looking at things and you're trying to decide the colors to use, be liberal with your colors. You almost have to imagine what they are. You kind of look at it and you go, well, I think I see green. Go ahead and use it. Or I think I see purple. And just remember, it's not the color that's important, it's the values. Try to get your values right. Use your colors as if they were pencils to get your shadows, your lights, and your darks. When we start painting, this is the same concept. Except with paint, you have to paint the white and the darks. So again, I'm going to go over all my shadows with that blue. Then I'll come back into it with purple and magenta. The last thing we're going to do is that little bit of yellow. You see how your edges are taking care of themselves? That top edge is still lost. Nobody can see that. That's okay. It's still interesting to look at. When you get down to his feet, just kind of fade him out. We're gonna get the grass and stuff in there, but you just have a kind of a faded kind of look to that because they're stuck in the grass. Not really defining his back leg because it's fuzzy, it's out of focus. Just keep it that way. Don't put a line around it. Don't define it. Just use it as a shape. Now a little bit of that magenta. That's kind of a purpley red. And I'm just gonna, wherever it looks a little warmer, like around his eyes. You don't need a lot, just here and there. When you do the yellow with the magenta, it will turn a little orangey red because it'll cancel out the purple that's in it. Like I say, you don't need it everywhere. You may want to do a little bit in the shadows That'll kind of turn them kind of a purpley red, which is lovely. It's a lovely color. You put it in the eyes if you want. A little bit up in the nose, maybe. But again, you kind of look at it and you think, where do I need more of that? Where do I need that? You can even be a little sketchy with it, a little free, a little spontaneous. Sometimes that spontaneity is kind of fun to see in your drawings. I see that magenta quite a bit in the back legs, especially the underneath leg. And some of that color you want to leave in, and some of it you think, well, I want to cover that with purple. So it's kind of up to you how much you leave in, how much you take out. The last thing you want to do is a little bit of that purple back into it. You want to add some pressure over the dark areas. So here I'm adding pressure over that black. It's going to take the blues, it's going to take the magenta, it's going to mix it. I can use that purple to darken in some of those shadow areas. It's going to mix with that magenta. So that purple now, just going to go over the black, going to go over anything that is darker. So that's the last thing you do, is just add some pressure to that purple, go back over your darks. Anything that you think you need to go darker with, that purple's going to do it for you. You want to increase that contrast as much as you can. Don't be afraid to add pressure to it. Any of those spots in the back that were in the light areas, go ahead and do them purple. Looks a whole lot nicer with color, but it's nice if your values are correct. Add some pressure when you're going over those black spots. Add some pressure to it. You want them to look dark, but you don't want them necessarily black. Does it bother you that you can't see the top of his head? If it does, a little bit, you can just, right in the corners where his ears are, just do a couple little lines, maybe a little dot or dash. Again, you got to be thinking ink. This is what you'd do if this were ink. I'm going to do the shadow in the grass with purple, and then we go over that with green, like a dark green. Just enough. You just do a little bit of that. You want some ground in there. Just scribble it. That will help define where its legs are too. Of course, when you're ready, you want to sign it. Your signature is part of your composition. Don't sign it right on the edge. Lift it up a little bit. You can sign it there or over here. This is probably a good place to sign it. I'm going to use some of that teal green to sign it. Same thing with his legs. You wanted to put a little dot or a little dash just to say this is where that end of the leg is. Go ahead. These back legs, I don't know if I'd worry about them. You know, everybody knows their back legs. You don't need to define them. If we wanted to, we could take a little bit of green, throw in there. Just tell everybody it's grass back in there. Remember, you're creating artwork, and so put yourself into it, whatever it is, your personality, whether it's the color, whether it's the way you apply your pencil, whatever it may be, put yourself into it. And that's what will endear you to the art and endear the arts to you. Have fun with it. And thanks again for coming with me on this little journey that we call art. I hope you've had a good time and learned some things. And join me again for another drawing. I hope it's made your life better, because art makes life better.